For more than 1,700 years, the story of India wasn't just written by kings and conquerors. The mountains, the rivers, the very coastlines were silent but powerful forces shaping its destiny. Today, we're diving into how India's incredible geography literally forged its greatest empires.
I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of an ambitious ruler back then. This is the question you have to answer. How do you possibly control a place this vast and diverse? And the answer isn't just about having the biggest army or the smartest politicians. It's about mastering the land itself. So what we're looking at isn't just a random series of dynasties rising and falling. It was this epic, constant struggle, a kind of geographic Game of Thrones. Every empire was trying to solve this puzzle of control, caught in a tug-of-war between building one single unified state and the land's natural tendency to pull everything apart.
Okay, so to really get this long and complicated game, we first have to understand the board it was all played on, the unique, incredible geography of the Indian subcontinent.
Let's start at the top. The northern edge of the board is dominated by the Himalayas. Now, this isn't just a bunch of tall mountains, it's a massive climatic barrier. It literally blocks the freezing winds coming down from Central Asia and traps all that monsoon moisture, which in turn feeds the great rivers that create the agricultural heartland of the whole subcontinent.
But here's the twist. A wall that big is bound to have a few doors, and these strategic passes, like the famous Khyber Pass, acted like funnels. They channeled everything, conquerors, new ideas, trade caravans, right from Central Asia into the Indian plains. So this protective wall also created a permanent strategic headache. Given this landscape, two main paths to power really opened up. On one hand, you could try to control the continental core. We're talking the ridiculously fertile Gangetic plains. That was your powerhouse for food and manpower. Or you could tap into the maritime rim, using India's immense coastline and its ports to get incredibly wealthy through global sea trade. And, these two sources of power were often pulling in completely different directions.
So who was the first to really crack this code? Who mastered this game board? Well, that brings us to the Mauryan Empire. These were the guys who created the first real blueprint for unifying the entire subcontinent. All right, so picture this. It's around 322 BCE. Alexander the Great has just swept through and left, creating a massive power vacuum. A brilliant leader named Chandragupta Maurya seizes the moment. He uses the huge resources of the Magadha kingdom right in the Gangetic plains to do something nobody had ever done before: forge the first great pan-Indian empire.
So how on earth did they manage a territory this huge? With a brilliant, highly organized bureaucracy. I mean, look at this chain of command. It's a perfect top-down system. You've got the king at the very top, royal princes governing the big provinces, district managers handling local affairs, all the way down to the individual village. It was an absolute machine built for central control.
And this machine was operated from key strategic hubs. Patliputra, the capital, was the heart, controlling that vital Gangetic artery. Taxila was the watchful eye on that northwestern gateway, managing trade and defense. And Ujjain acted as this critical node, connecting the agricultural interior to the rich ports on the western coast. Every city had a purpose.
But here's the thing about a tightly wound system like that. It's incredibly difficult to maintain over generations. Geography always pushes back. So let's take a look at what happened when these great empires started to fracture.
Now, the key to understanding this whole next phase is a new administrative tool called the Brahmadeya. Essentially, instead of paying all their officials directly, kings started granting them plots of land, often tax-free, in exchange for their services. This might seem like a small change, but it started a massive shift in how the subcontinent was governed.
Think about it. With every single land grant, the king was basically giving away a little piece of his direct authority. Power wasn't centralized anymore. It was being outsourced, creating this patchwork of semi-independent local lords. The political map was literally breaking into smaller and smaller pieces.
But while the land-based empires were splintering, something else was happening along the coasts. The great seaports, places like Tamarlipti and Arikamadu, they just kept trading. The global maritime economy provided this incredibly stable source of wealth that was almost totally independent of who was king in the heartland. It just goes to show you the resilience of that other path to power.
This fragmented landscape set the perfect stage for a new power to enter the game, and this one came with a completely different rulebook: the Delhi Sultanate.
The Sultanate's key innovation was something called the Iqta system. Now, at first glance, it looks a lot like another land grant, right? A territory was assigned to a military commander who then used its revenue to pay himself and maintain his troops. The critical difference, however, was in the fine print.
And this comparison just lays it out perfectly. A Brahmadeya was often permanent and hereditary, which naturally created local power bases and decentralized the state. And Iqta, on the other hand, was designed to be temporary and transferable. Its purpose was purely military and financial, and its whole effect was to centralize power right back into the hands of the Sultan.
Yeah, that transferability was the absolute genius of the system. A commander could never get too comfortable or build his own little dynasty on his assigned land, because the Sultan could just reassign him at any time. It was a direct and incredibly clever administrative counterattack against those geographic forces of fragmentation.
So, after centuries of this struggle, had the Sultanate finally solved India's geography? Had they won the game? Well, let's pull back and look at the enduring cycle that really defines this whole era.
This chart basically summarizes our entire journey. You see the Mauryans achieving unity through a powerful central bureaucracy. Then, you see the pendulum swing way over to fragmentation with the Brahmadeya grants. And finally, the Delhi Sultanate tries to swing it all the way back, attempting re-centralization with the Iqta system. It's a constant push and pull.
But here's the kicker. Over time, even the powerful Iqta system couldn't resist the pull of the land. These assignments started becoming hereditary, local power bases reemerged, and the cycle began all over again, proving just how powerful those forces of regionalism truly are.
Which leaves us with a final, really fascinating question. Is this cycle the defining feature of Indian history? A permanent tension between the dream of a unified subcontinent and the powerful reality of a diverse landscape that will always favor regional identity? The game, it seems, is never truly over.